What's going on, everybody? This is Daniel Worthy with Worthy D's Tech Blog. Today I'm going to be going over something that I hold very close to my heart, and it is minification of static assets for your websites. That includes CSS files and JavaScript files. Sounds really cheesy, but it's something that can drastically increase the performance of your websites if you have the time to pay attention to it. So I've used a various number of frameworks and utilities to do minification in the past. YUI compressor, the default MVC4 bundling that's provided with Visual Studio and MVC4. It's a great resource. However, it doesn't output a physical file that you could say put on a CDN or quickly modify on the fly if needed. The YUI compressor extension that's available for Visual Studio requires a lot of setup. You have to go in and set up a build event and a ridiculous configuration file, which is a lot of work to get stood up for a new project. So what I'm going to show you today is a tool called, it's an extension of Visual Studio called Web Essentials. You can find the tool at vswebessentials.com. Tons and tons of useful features for web development, not just for Visual Studio, .NET applications. It can be used for standalone HTML websites as long as you're using Visual Studio for your editor. Style sheets, JavaScript, TypeScript less, CoffeeScript, a lot of stuff there that's useful. All you have to do is go to the site, download the VISX file, or you can go into your Visual Studio instance, go to Tools, and Extensions and Updates. It's going to be one of the first extensions that's available online because it's a very popular extension. So, second one on the list, right next to NuGet, which also comes pre-installed in Visual Studio. You will have to go out and get Web Essentials, but it's very much worth the effort. Once when you get it downloaded and installed, you're going to want to go in and get it set up for your personal preferences on code. So in the General tab, it comes in default with keep important comments on false. I personally recommend keeping this on true because having your comments marked as important, you can utilize versions inside of the top of your file so that you know if you're on your CDN or your local server whether you truly have the latest version. Say for instance your CDN cache didn't clear properly. One of the other dropping down to the CSS options, I generally keep everything standard. There's going to be a lot of settings for auto completion and stuff like that. Vendor specific values. The one thing that I would recommend keeping, making sure is on, is Minify CSS on save. For JavaScript, one option that is highly useful, and we'll show here in a minute, is generate source maps, which will allow you to use your minified files in development and be able to actually see what line your JavaScript is erroring out on if there is a bug in your code. Also make sure that JavaScript files on save is on also. So another reason why I highly encourage the use of Web Essentials is it's very team oriented. You don't have to tell all your developers to go find this third-party website to install a plugin or teach them how to use an extension. This is a very user-friendly extension of Visual Studio. So to dive right in, we're going to quickly minify a single JavaScript file. So this plugins.css, this is actually the jQuery UI style sheet. So if this is your single style sheet for your website, to minify it, all you have to do is select your file, right click on it, and you're going to get a context menu that says Web Essentials. And all you have to do is highlight Minify CSS, and it's going to automatically create a plugins.min.css for us. Since we do have the important comments on, and the important comments for JavaScript and CSS is /*! You're going to want this on for your version numbers, also for the licenses, for instance with this. And just to demo on the fly, the save on or minify on save, we're going to delete that exclamation mark and reopen the file. See that there's no comments there. Now let's say for instance you're going to be working in a project with a lot of files. I'm a big fan of having a reset file, a base file, a CSS file for every single folder of my views. For instance, for this project, all we're going to do, we're going to highlight all the files, right click, hover over Web Essentials again, and create CSS bundle file. We're just going to call it site. Cool thing about this is that it's going to create a site.css file and a site.min.css file. So if you want to, you could say plug this into a CSS validator for easy reading, or possibly reference this for your development code. Now, one of the problems with just doing that is that we see that our reset file is on the very bottom of our .bundle file. So typically, I could just delete that file and move it up to the top. I'm using VSVim. Which is how I was able to move that file quickly. Say, for instance, you don't want to do that. Web Essentials is smart enough to know what files you selected first. So what we're going to do is I'm going to highlight Select, then Base, and then Plugin. Right-click, go over to the same steps we just did, call it Site, and you can see that it does reset base plugins, the order that we had originally set up in. Additionally, the Minify on save is present. Re-add that important comment, reload the file, and it's there. Alright, so moving on to JavaScript. JavaScript configuration is very much similar. I have my views, my home.about, my homeindex.js files. Just empty, nothing fancy. I'm going to highlight those, right click on Web Essentials, and create a bundle file. I'm just going to call them home, and it's going to output my home.js, which will give me slightly documented, automated documented items, a min file, and then a map file. And this map file, you're not going to really be able to read and understand what's going on with it, since it's more of a reference file. So to demo what a map file does for us, I am going to go into my home.index, remove this comment, and this is going to create a JavaScript error when we load this page. I'm in a simple ASP.NET MVC4 application. So I have commented out my reference to my minified version of the file. And so if we actually open that up, it'll have this extra line of code to reference for the source map. Now if we hop over to our page here, maps are only available in Google Chrome. You're going to see them over in your console when there's an error. To enable source maps, they're not enabled by default. You're going to have to click on your settings and come over to enable source maps right here. I found a couple of really good articles going more in depth with source JavaScript maps. I'll include links to those in the description. So if we refresh our page here, we should get a JavaScript error saying, outside of views not found, home index is not defined. That's not right. Let's expand it. Anonymous function, demo 4. What did I do wrong here? Oh golly. That would be it. Okay, it needs to be home.min.js. Alrighty. Let's refresh that page. Get the same error, but it says uncaught reference error. Foo is not defined. HomeIndex.js line 3. So if we go back into Visual Studio, Alt tab over, or Control tab over to home.js. I'm sorry, HomeIndex.js, and we see on line 3, foo is not defined. So that is a very high level of the minification abilities of Visual Studio Web Essentials. I'd highly recommend you to check this out and recommend it to your team for your site's minification and streamlining better features of some of the new stuff available in Visual Studio 2010. It does require Web Tools 2012.2. I just said 2010 earlier. I meant Visual Studio 2012. It would be great if this was available in 2010, but it's just not available. So anyway, it would be really appreciated if you leave any positive or negative comments in the forms below, like the video if you feel like this was helpful, and provide any sort of feedback, any additional plugins you want to see gone over, how to use, benefits, and all that fun stuff. So anyway, this is Daniel Worthy with Worthy D's Tech Blog, and we'll see you guys on the next one.